On January 27th, a lone Ukrainian drone entered Russian-controlled airspace with a singular objective. It was not sent to destroy a runway or ignite fuel tanks. The mission was far more precise. Ahead lay Russia's most critical airborne sensor platform in the south. This aircraft controlled detection, tracking, and early warning across the Black Sea. If it remained operational, Ukraine would lose its operational blind zone. If it were removed, the balance of power would shift quietly but decisively.
Bandwidth is stabilizing on
The
channel
target
3.
was an IL-38N, Russia's most advanced maritime reconnaissance aircraft in the southern theater. It was not designed to strike, but to see. And seeing controlled everything that followed. The platform integrated radar tracking, electronic intelligence, magnetic anomaly detection, and sonar processing into a single operational picture. During one patrol cycle, it could monitor up to 46 contacts simultaneously. It extended Russian situational awareness more than 300 kilometers beyond the coastline. If active, Ukrainian long-range drones would be detected earlier, naval logistics routes would be exposed, and low-altitude penetration corridors would effectively disappear. Intelligence assessments showed that a single, uninterrupted mission could compromise assets valued at over $4 billion. That risk was unacceptable. Satellite imagery taken earlier that morning confirmed active pre-flight activity. Engine covers had been removed. Fuel vehicles were positioned along the apron. Maintenance crews had begun final systems checks. Based on standard procedures, the aircraft would be mission ready in under 90 minutes. After that point, engagement options would collapse. The airbase was protected by layered air defense systems. Interceptor aircraft remained on alert status. Any strike launched after takeoff would face detection within minutes and interception shortly after. This operation was not about destroying an airframe. It was about removing a system. Damaging the fuselage achieved nothing. Neutralizing the mission architecture changed the balance of the southern battlespace. If the IL-38N entered service, Russia regained full aerial awareness over the region. If it did not, Ukraine retained its critical operational blind zone. The decision was already made. Only the execution remained. The platform chosen was the Ludi jet-powered UAV. It was not selected for stealth. It was selected because nothing else could reach the target in time.
I don't care how, just find it.
Ludi operated without live control. No joystick, no satellite uplink, no video transmission. After launch, the aircraft followed a fixed mission package stored inside its flight computer. This choice was forced. Electronic warfare density along the southern front had increased sharply.
The trajectory indicates
Remote control links now survive less than 10 seconds before collapsing. Any drone depending on constant communication would be neutralized almost immediately. Ludi removed that weakness. The UAV cruised at 205 kilometers per hour, maintaining an altitude between 30 and 60 meters. At that level, radar detection probability fell below 5% beyond coastal range. The planned route stretched 610 kilometers. Fuel reserves allowed only 6 minutes of deviation. A single navigational error would end the mission. There was no secondary drone on standby. Production capacity remained limited. Each unit required over 1,200 assembly hours, and system costs exceeded $430,000. Expendable in theory, but scarce in reality. The payload was built for one task. Its warhead produced a focused fragment field capable of disabling hardened avionics in under 4 milliseconds. This was not a warning strike, not a message, and not a demonstration. It was a single-use operation with a single acceptable outcome. If Ludi failed, the IL-38N would fly. If the aircraft flew, Ukraine's southern airspace would no longer be blind. The launch decision was final. The next problem was physics. Russian air defense coverage in the south appeared dense. Over 1,200 radar systems were deployed from the coastline to inland positions. On planning maps, no gaps existed. In practice, the gaps were fundamental. Radar energy travels in straight lines. The Earth does not. Most coastal radar antennas were mounted between 18 and 25 meters above ground. From that height, the radar horizon extended roughly 40 kilometers.
The southern theater,
Any object flying below 50 meters disappeared beyond that limit, regardless of system power. At 10:42 local time, The Ludi crossed the coastline and stabilized at 35 to 45 meters altitude. 6 minutes later, it vanished. Detection probability dropped to near zero. Not reduced, but eliminated. Even systems capable of tracking fighter aircraft at 300 kilometers were blind. Increasing output power achieved nothing. The beam passed overhead, never touching the target. Russian operators continued scanning, their displays filled with terrain returns, sea clutter, and atmospheric interference. The drone was already inside protected airspace, moving forward for more than 70 minutes. No radar could reacquire it. This was not stealth technology. The aircraft was not hidden, it was simply below the line of sight. While command centers searched higher altitudes, the battle progressed underneath them. Sensors obeyed geometry, not urgency. During that window, Russian air defense lost control of the air picture. The Ludi advanced untouched, not because it was superior, but because the planet itself blocked every attempt to see it. The fight had shifted, and radar was no longer part of it. At 10:58 a.m., Russian air defense command centers confirmed complete radar loss of the target. Multiple systems were still transmitting, and antennas remained active. Screens displayed normal background returns, but the track was gone. No altitude data, no range correlation, and no confirmed radar contact.
Deploy the drone for visual confirmation.
The disappearance followed a known pattern. Targets flying at extreme low altitude routinely drop below the radar horizon. This time, Russian command did not wait. Across the southern region, a secondary detection layer was activated. The acoustic surveillance network. More than each unit combined multi-directional microphones with processors trained to classify engine noise. Propellers, helicopters, and piston engines produced predictable acoustic signatures. Jet engines were different. The Ludi's turbojet generated dominant frequency peaks between 4 and 8 kHz. Cold air increased sound transmission efficiency, extending detection range by nearly 30%. Within minutes, one station detected an abnormal signal well above ambient background levels. Additional sensors confirmed matching bearings. The network fused the data. The track reappeared. Not on radar, but on sound. Position accuracy tightened to within 40 meters, updating every few seconds. For the first time since crossing the coast, the drone could be followed again. However, it could only be followed. The acoustic system could calculate heading and speed, but it could not engage. Russia had regained awareness, but not control. The next decision would have to be made fast. Acoustic tracking data was transmitted to a Tor M2 battery along the projected flight corridor. The feed provided bearing, speed, and predicted path updates every few seconds. The system was built to counter low-altitude threats. Tor M2 could engage cruise missiles and helicopters using radar-guided interceptors. The limitation was elevation. The radar required a minimum angle of approximately 1.3 degrees to separate targets from terrain reflections. Below that, ground clutter saturated the signal processor. The Ludi maintained flight at around 30 meters. At a distance of 16 kilometers, that altitude produced an elevation angle of roughly 0.1 degrees. The radar beam intersected terrain before reaching the aircraft. The display showed interference and false returns, with no valid target. Operators increased output power, but the effect was negligible. To detect an object at that altitude, Tor M2 required it to be within about 1 kilometer. At the drone's speed, the engagement window lasted less than 20 seconds. The system functioned as designed, but it could not engage a target below its usable radar horizon. The drone exited the defended zone untouched. Russia possessed detection and firepower. What it lacked was a usable line of sight. That failure forced command to consider a far riskier solution. With the drone beyond the defended zone, Russian command faced shrinking options. One remained. An improvised interceptor was launched. Garan was designed as a one-way strike drone, not an air defense platform. Mounting a surface-to-air missile required external brackets and exposed wiring. There would be no reload.
I see it.
The Verba missile offered high lethality under correct conditions. Its seeker combined infrared, ultraviolet, and near-infrared channels to discriminate against flares. The challenge was the interception itself.
Garand
Garand cruised at 175 kilometers per hour. The Ludi was faster by over 30 kilometers per hour. Direct pursuit was impossible. Command relied on acoustic tracking to predict a crossing point rather than chasing the target. Timing became critical. Fuel reserves allowed less than 15 minutes of maneuvering. Russia was no longer reacting with doctrine. It was reacting with necessity. The intercept would succeed or fail within minutes. There would be no second attempt. The inner contact occurred briefly as the drone crossed open terrain. The exposure window lasted less than 3 seconds, but it was enough. The Verba-Seeker activated. Thermal contrast exceeded the background by over 350 degrees Celsius. The target was classified as valid. Launch estimate the missile. Its flight computer executed a steep descent to preserve terrain masking,
We're losing the
unaware
window,
of the
Commander. We
threat.
have to authorize the strike.
The Verba
Do it!
followed,
All teams,
commanding a
execute
dive as
Crimson Gambit
altitude
immediately.
collapsed. The missile crossed below 30 meters, entering a zone saturated with magnetic interference. At 9 seconds, the system hesitated.
Connection secure, we are good to go.
At 11 seconds,
Acknowledged.
detonation
Firing up the
occurred.
engine.
The blast failed to intersect the target. Fragmentation struck the terrain instead. The Ludi passed through the shockwave without structural damage. The missile was gone. The drone continued forward. The intercept window closed not by command, but by physics. The Ludi entered the final phase of the operation under autonomous control. Human input was no longer possible. Target selection had passed entirely to onboard systems. The UAV approached an airfield containing multiple aircraft with nearly identical layouts. Visual similarity made manual identification impossible from a low angle. This moment had been anticipated. The flight computer activated its trained recognition model. The system had been built using more than 4,900 labeled reference images. The algorithm did not search for aircraft by name. It searched for structure. Edge patterns, shadow geometry, and proportional spacing were extracted continuously. Candidates were filtered by engine count, wing placement, and fuselage length. One feature remained decisive: the ELINT pod mounted above the forward fuselage. This module altered the airflow, shadow shape, and silhouette profile. The standard IL-38 lacked this structure. The system compared observed geometry against trained parameters in real time. As alignment improved, uncertainty collapsed. Competing aircraft were discarded automatically. No confirmation request was sent. No human review occurred. Once confidence crossed the threshold, the navigation system generated a dedicated attack corridor. All other aircraft on the apron were excluded. The decision was not emotional. It was mathematical. The target had been isolated. At 12:15 p.m. local time, the attack profile changed. The Ludi did not aim for the fuselage or engines. It selected a narrow impact corridor above the forward section of the aircraft. Destroying the airframe was unnecessary. Eliminating the mission system was the objective. The warhead was configured for an airburst detonation. A radar altimeter triggered the charge at approximately 5.6 meters above the surface. At that height, the blast pattern shifted downward rather than outward. Inside the nose section, the charge was surrounded by nearly 1,900 preformed steel fragments. Upon detonation, fragments accelerated to over 1,600 meters per second. The strike cone measured roughly 4 meters in diameter. That zone covered the ELINT pod in the forward mission bay. The aluminum skin offered no resistance. Sensor housings ruptured instantly. Antenna arrays were shredded. Processing racks collapsed under extreme fragment density. The aircraft did not explode. Fuel tanks were untouched. From the outside, the platform appeared survivable. Internally, it was finished. The central mission computer was destroyed before it could register a failure. Data pathways ceased. Displays went dark. The aircraft could still fly and land, but it could no longer see, hear, or interpret the battlefield. The platform remained alive. The system did not. In less than 4 milliseconds, Russia lost its southern airborne sensor node. The impact appeared first on operational maps. Within hours, Russian command reported a collapse in situational awareness across the sector. Long-range tracking coverage over the Black Sea dropped by more than 60%. Naval patrol schedules were suspended. Drone launch warnings stopped arriving on time. The aircraft remained physically present, but its function was gone. Without the IL-38N mission system, radar returns could no longer be correlated. Targets appeared and disappeared without classification. Russian crews reverted to ground-based sensors, reducing detection range by over 70%. What was once a layered network became a collection of blind
Zoom in right there.
zones. Restoring capability would require factory-level reconstruction
just find
and
it.
months of calibration. Estimates place recovery time between 6 and 9 months. During that window, the southern battlespace remained partially opaque. In modern war, losing vision is often more dangerous than losing firepower. This operation was not about destroying an aircraft. It was about removing awareness and control from the battlefield. No dramatic fireballs marked the strike, yet the result reshaped an entire sector of the war. A single autonomous drone disabled a system worth hundreds of millions. That is how modern conflict works now. Quiet, precise, and unforgiving. If you want deeper breakdowns like this, leave your thoughts in the comments.